Hi, good night, good night. Good night, Tobago. Welcome to another episode of 40 Hour. We are live in Tobago Updates Television Studios. My name is Edison Thomas, and I will be your host slash moderator for this lovely Monday evening. All right? Hope that
Monday evening.
yes, very hot Monday evening. I hear that we're in the middle of a heat wave, and we're on track to have the hottest day in for the year so far. All right. I trust that you guys had a wonderful weekend. We have a lot going on the island right now. We have the Commonwealth Youth Games, right? We had commencing in Black Rock, the beach volleyball. We also had, we had the triathlon yesterday in Boko, right, at the integrated facility. And also we have the rugby going on in Shore Park and netball as well at the Shore Park Cultural Complex. All right, so lots of activities going on. Tobagonians, go out, support. All right, cheer for your local athletes where they are when they are participating and playing. All right, so but tonight's discussion is more so geared towards ongoing situation that we Tobagonians are facing, and this concerns the licensing officers and the TTPS. So tonight's topic is titled "The TTPS and Licensing Office and Tobago." All right, and so we're going to discuss the dynamics between those two institutions, all right, and how it relates to how they operate in Tobago. All right, so one of the things I noticed over the weekend, the road was pretty quiet. The road was pretty quiet. Even though we had so much things going on the island right now, the road was pretty quiet, right? And we're going to discuss as to why we think that is. All right, so joining us, we have Mr. Pigott. All right, we have also, no stranger to the show, we have Mr. Barry Nelson, all right, and we also have Mr. Ricardo Philip, all right. So, welcome, gentlemen. Mr. Barry, I like your shirt. I like your shirt tonight.
Thank you very much.
Very colorful, very colorful. Nice Monday evening, hot.
Well, summer way.
You understand? Yeah. Hot. Right.
There's a hat that goes with that shirt.
You have a hat? You should have bring the hat. You should have bring the hat. Next time when you come on the sugar, bring the hat. All right, gentlemen. So, it's no secret. We have had, in the last couple of days, we have had the licensing officers here from Trinidad. All right, and it's usually many of them. I don't know the exact number, but it's more than a few. All right, and they have been patrolling the streets, setting up roadblocks, inspection blocks, and when we are when they are present, you get this very real heavy sense in Tobago, right? I just want to know if, gentlemen, if you just really feel that heaviness when the white shirts,
Yes, real.
as they are affectionately called, the white shirts,
Very real.
when they're in Tobago, right? Do you guys feel the heaviness?
Of course, absolutely.
But let's also be honest about that. That feeling is global.
Mm-hmm.
Any people that's confronted by traffic, wardens, traffic officers, whether it's the state patrol in the United States, people know how to adjust their driving when they're going by the state patrol office on the highway there, and so forth. So everyone gets antsy because they think they're under a microscope with their driving. And for the slightest thing, they're going to get a ticket. They're going to get pulled over. What if something isn't right? My nails isn't done. My hair isn't done properly. What have you? You know what I'm saying? So it's not just a Tobago thing. Tobago is now responding because I have a feeling that we have not been faced with this kind of treatment. This is probably something very novel. These gentlemen could probably help with that. I just came back home in
Right.
2016, so they could probably go in more deep on that. Whether or not this has been a regular
thing.
undertaking in Tobago since we stopped driving box carts on dirt roads.
And correct, it's not. It's absolutely not. Tobago, I mean, the whole island is traumatized. And I think that the Tobago response or Tobago scenario is a different kind of trauma from warning about whether your nails is right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's a different kind of trauma. This is I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the licensing and the police conducting the operation. The problem we have is the manner in which it's being done. And if you're trying to fix a long-standing problem, because the problems of motor vehicle and on the nation's road is not a no problem. You know. This is a problem from way back before you're on my time. The licensing department, the Ministry of Works, and the government by extension has failed. And as a consequence, you're trying to fix that problem now with a sledgehammer. That's what they're actually doing, and that's what people are reacting to. There are situations and circumstances where you don't even know what to do to regularize your situation and circumstances. There are people who have bought vehicles, and the vehicles have 5, 6 different owners, and the vehicles have not been transferred to these various people, and you don't know how to fix that. So it's a whole host of different challenges that you face. Thinking about going to the licensing office to fix something is a whole day or a half day, a 3/4 day experience.
Multiple days.
Yeah,
Multiple
yeah.
days sometimes. So
Yeah.
the licensing department has created an atmosphere of hide and seek. It's the biggest hide and seek I ever see play out in the history of any democracy. Hide and seek. That's what the licensing department has created. You have the claim from the Assistant Commissioner of Police in Tobago that vehicles are being stolen from Trinidad and sent to Tobago. And so they send up licensing officers to hunt down these vehicles now. The vehicle even coming on the port, Barry. Entering Tobago from the port in Trinidad. That entry is open. There's no check, no balance there. And then when you come to Tobago now, you want to run them down and try to figure out, well, where you go find them.
Right,
and you traumatize
right.
the entire society because of your own feeling. You fail to fix, you fail to address, there's always this sense of no strategy, there's no policy in dealing with matters of national interest. It's always about when this one get into office, and I'm talking about the higher ups, he decided, hey, I want to do it this way. And there's no policy, there's no strategy to refer to how we're going to treat or how we are accustomed to or how we should treat with these type of problems. And so problems are allowed to get to this extent, and then you want to fix it overnight. It's not going to happen. You're losing this battle.
Really and truly. Really and truly. You could see the deep-seated problems
Of course.
inside the licensing, because you had a problem with vehicles not being transferred to the correct owner. I'm pretty sure if a licensing officer meets you on the road, you ask for a certified copy and you can't, it's like something. They will ask questions of you if the certified copy is not your name or somebody who is close to you that owns the vehicle. Right? So they have questions, is the vehicle stolen, X, Y, Z?
Exactly.
You have to ask them questions, but at the same time, is the inefficiencies of the licensing offices that's what has caused it to be that way. Barry, what do you think?
Okay, my good friend here, Ricardo, brought up some great points. Also, my next co-host here, but I want the commissioner the license commission, the transport commission, don't have the powers as the police commissioner have. So the license commissioner just can't take up and just jump and come to Tobago like that. He don't have like the logistic is different than if he going to San Fernando Arima. The logistics is different. The logistics is that he have to make recommendations to the permanent secretary because it have a lot of logistics involved. You have
permanent secretary into
the permanent secretary ministry of Work because they have personnel. Vehicles, where to stay, the amount of personnel to come, because remember they are depending on the person, and you have to give a reason for why you want to come to. So the license commission have to make a recommendation, right? The reason why he want to come to Tobago, the strength, the amount of vehicles and all of that, to send up to the permanent secretary, and they have to give a costing to see how many days and how many money it will cost and what the logistic. And and the reason why they wanted to come to Tobago. I heard the commissioner, the license commissioner said that he watched on the computer and he didn't see nobody get charged. That can't be a reason for coming to Tobago to bring up just I heard him on our next frequency, our next media frequency. He look on the system and he didn't see nobody get charged, no vehicle get charged. I said, what? So the point I'm making is that you just can't jump and come to Tobago because there are plenty of logistics. You have to make recommendation. You have to put the reason why you are coming to Tobago. Further than that, it have an institution, a government institution called the Tobago House Assembly, where the licensing office is under the Tobago House Assembly.
Yes.
So when that recommendation is made, there must be some dialogue between the permanent secretary and the chief administrator here. Because remember, the licensing department is under the Tobago House of Assembly. And they have to, well, okay, I have this recommendation. This is the reason why you think, because they need manpower. And because, remember, they're coming over here, they're using our licensing officer here. And remember, Tobagonians have business to conduct at the same time.
Yeah.
So all of that, somebody may want to go down to do a transfer that have to be signed off by the line. All these things have to take into consideration. And then probably, when the permanent secretary meets the recommendation, that recommendation due to the logistics, the money involved, the person may have to go to the minister. The minister may have to see that, because remember, something like this can cause problems and hit back, and a reporter might meet and call the minister. So the minister have to know, well, okay, he's aware or she's aware of what is going on. So it's not just that you just jump and come up here. And we have seen and we have heard that the Tobago House of Assembly, through the chief secretary, have said that there was no communication between the two bodies, and that cannot be right.
That's not the constitution. That's not the arrangement of the marriage.
Right.
The licensing office may be housed or cared for by the THA, but the licensing officers is not part of the THA.
Yes, but then
even those in Tobago, understand what I'm saying?
No, Ricardo, hold on. We have a House of Assembly Act where the Tobago House of Assembly is responsible for fifth schedule items. Certain fifth schedule items. Right, certain fifth, and they are the sixth schedule. If Tobago the Tobago House, the institution called the Tobago House of Assembly is responsible for certain fifth items. The sixth schedule item, there must be some kind of dialogue between the government. If there is a government in Tobago, there is a government in Tobago. Yeah, so there must be some dialogue. You just can't come in and do restriction and do what you want because you central government. That is not good governance. That is not good governance.
The point I was just making is that the licensing officers is not under the purview of the THA. The licensing department, the administration and support staff are, but not licensing officers.
Yes, but what
the Transport Commissioner of Trinidad and Tobago is responsible for licensing officers throughout Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not arguing, I'm not disputing your point. I'm just simply saying that you must make a distinction that the licensing officers, the officers at the station of the licensing officers in Tobago,
right. But the supportive staff is paid by the Tobago Assembly.
Of course.
So there is some dialogue must take place.
I don't know, but in terms of the duties of the licensing officers, that is something that they don't have they don't take directives from the THA.
All right. Also, let me ask you a question. So therefore, should the workers that the THA pay take direction from the licensing officers?
No, you're saying
no, I'm asking you a question. You are saying that.
I'm just simply saying
the
way the arrangement is set up, the way the law is set up.
And I'm not disagreeing with you.
They come like the police. The licensing department, licensing officers rather, and the police operate on the same scenario.
And they take instruction from
the commissioner.
Right. So I'm asking you a question. The staff, the supporting staff, the clerk ones and the various, the cashiers, should they take instruction from those like who the THA pay? Who they should take instruction from?
That's a different
well, and this is why I'm saying to you there must be some kind of dialogue between the two institutions.
I'm not disputing what you say. I'm simply saying that we have to make that distinction that when somebody said that the licensing department, as though the licensing officers and everybody else is being controlled by the teacher, that is not true. The licensing officers are not controlled by the House of Assembly.
Well, I guess that's the reason why we have this situation
Exactly.
going on right now, because they don't take orders from the
They
THA.
don't take orders from the THA.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're coming into a space.
And I get that. I get that.
So
there should
I
be.
get that. You're supposed to have some kind of dialogue.
There should be collaboration.
Well, as a matter of fact, let me just, if I could, just quickly, Barry, I get your point. The problem here is there's a national problem, a comprehensive national problem with motor vehicles on the road. The licensing department is the government institution charged with the responsibility of regularizing and keeping that in checks and balance. The situation is that, this is not maybe the opportunity to point fingers, but let's get past that. It has morphed into a serious problem that all of us are responsible for.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All of us are
right.
responsible for
That's
the
right.
situation that we find ourselves in terms of motor vehicles in the nation
That's
and
right.
roads.
That's right.
The licensing have to take their fair share of the blame too.
Yes. Yes.
And therefore, you need a comprehensive approach in dealing with this. And so I agree with you that they should have some dialogue, but this is the problem we face again. The data must be, we have 50,000 vehicles stolen going to Tobago. You have to have that data.
You have
Right.
data.
You have to have data.
Right.
So
right.
what they're doing now is a futile exercise, and you create a hide and seek scenario where, because they're failing in this scenario, listen, the real people, the vehicles that they're searching for that come to Tobago, they're more happening right over there.
Right.
Well, right, and you made the point that the first point of it that all those vehicles that before they go on the port, should there be
Some kind of
it
check
should
them
be
out.
because they will
against
have
a
an idea
Database or something.
of stolen
Because they will have an
vehicles,
idea at the vehicle that are stolen.
Yeah, they should.
They should have.
Yeah, they
Right.
should.
And at that point in time, you can interject as well.
Exactly.
And then when you come to Tobago, now you have another backup plan here to deal with coming off the boat.
Right. Right.
So you have that. You have
Yeah,
that
you don't traumatize the whole
No,
island.
I am agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
Because I have a daughter, and she feared to go and drive.
You don't want to drive on the road.
From all view that the vehicle is inspected, the tires good, this.
The
So you're
experience-
wondering.
The experience is horrible.
So when you find law-abiding citizens, figure that they're as far as they're concerned, they are doing to the law, and you are being traumatized. You don't do things like that. You don't do things like that.
No, apart from the administrative failures that we know is there, and probably the issue you're talking about, Barry, where they should be communicating with the THA before coming into Tobago. Apart from that, as Ricardo just said, and I agree with him on that point, the issue is that people are dying on the road,
In Tobago,
right? People are dying
In
on the
Tobago.
road in Tobago.
how much road accident happened in Tobago?
Well, I mean,
Well,
one
we had
one is
a few
too much.
up in the air,
Yeah,
but-
one is too
One-
much.
one is too much.
Yeah, exactly. I do have a
No,
problem.
let me finish. Driving behavior on the road in Tobago is horrendous,
I agree with that. Very honest.
right? So whether or not 10 people are dying a day, 2 people are dying a day, or 1 person is dying a year, the driving behavior is horrendous. It's only a matter of time before deaths escalate because of behavior, because it's becoming a habit. Driving is a habit.
All right, let me stick to your pin.
And-
Stick a pin there. The driving is horrendous. Is that problem can be fixed by the licensing officer or patrolled by the police on the?
Has it been?
Yeah?
Has it been?
Who should fix that? Power Rangers driving on you? The
Well,
licensing officer.
the licensing office and the police, I think.
But
But
they are
have they
responsible,
been?
but
But have they
not
been?
Because what
So that's my question.
the
That's my
fines that are
question.
be giving out.
It's
It's not for the
It's not
individual.
Yeah,
dangerous
yeah.
driving.
And they're not doing their job, because I am on the roadway and I will see cars going down the highway flying, and I'll say 80 kilometers per hour because that's the speed limit. So I'm not going to say in excess of that because that's breaking the law.
Right.
80 kilometers per hour. And you see cars going down the road, and when you look at them, they look like a stretch limo going down the road. Because the car is so close to the other car in front of it, that is a dangerous situation waiting to happen.
Right. I agree.
Serious death is waiting to happen because of that following too close, right? And there'll be a police passing them, or maybe a police behind that car, and that's a situation that no one cares about. Police ignore that situation, you see, as if it's not even happening. But that is a dangerous situation, and that's a driving habit. And I say it's a habit because it's not just the young men who may have watched one episode of Fast and Furious too much, and everybody wants to be Vin Diesel in these cars out there on the road, thinking they could drive like that, and literally when it's time to brake and they can't brake, they can fly over the car and do all kind of fancy things with the wheels as they see in the movies. It don't work like that in real life, right? But when I look in my rear view mirror and I see that car too close and I look at the driver, it's a woman driving. It's an older person driving. It's not just young. So this is why I said the driving habits have to be abated. They have to be adjusted, because you get so comfortable driving a certain way that it escalates from there. And so that has to be adjusted.
Right. And you see, you have to do your research, because the research, from my unofficial research, there are certain vehicles that are modified and cause dangerous driving. You see, there's a vehicle called the B14s. Most of those vehicles are modified in some way. It's either they increase the engine, they're low. No. Those, when you modify vehicles like that, and don't modify at the same time, you put in an engine, and you don't modify the braking system, this is where the trouble starts. This is where it is dangerous. Because here you are, you're increasing the power of the vehicle, but the brake system you have not handled. So that if you have to mash your brakes at a certain instance,
that's right.
The braking system cannot facilitate.
Right.
So therefore, the point I'm making, that is one area that the licensing, which you have to do your research.
Right.
So you target, you do a research, you target, you realize by over a period of time that you are realize that those vehicles, the B14s or whatever, those are the vehicles that are drop low and that are according that they put in the fast engine, and then you target those vehicles.
But let's keep in mind that, and I hear your point. But those are not the only vehicles flying down the highway like that. Because when I look at my highway, I'm seeing, regular vehicles being driven. Right. So what I'm saying is that
keep your car up to code.
Right. So other than the vehicles that have been modified, the lowriders, right? Other than those vehicles, it's practically all cars out there driving like that. When I came home back in 2008 on vacation, and I was in the car with one of my cousins. And this is a respectable gentleman, a very, he handles himself properly, but he was driving like that. And I'm in the car and I'm like panicking, like, man, if that driver in front of you thinks he sees his great grandmother flying in front of him in some kind of hallucination thing, and he just steps on his brakes like that, you're mashed up. Because you don't have enough room to brake safely. Whether you have a modified vehicle or not, you need to have a safe following distance in case something happens there. No. You know what he told me? If he does not drive like that, the vehicle behind him will see that open space and come around him and slip into that space. So they drive like that to keep other people from coming in and slipping in like that. It's a habit.
But
and that has to be modified.
You know what is important? What we missed, the point that we missed. And very good point you guys make, but what we're missing, that is just one small aspect of the culture of lawlessness. This is a culture, a lawless culture. This is not just on the road and traffic and so on. Right. This span in all disciplines in our society, a culture of lawlessness where people get away with murder, people get away with all kinds of stuff.
That's right.
So the driving culture, you going on the road, a man come out of a side road and he will come out, half his car out.
Yes.
That's not the licensing officer and police and all. His car is out halfway in the road and you have to swing away from him.
Yes, it's a habit.
Culture of lawlessness.
Right.
How do you resolve? How do you solve? How do you treat with those
patrols?
I had a friend told me one time.
Patrols.
He said something. I can't remember what country he told me. He said 70% of the police is on the streets.
That's where they belong.
That's where they belong, on the streets.
That's where they belong.
All the crime that happens in any country have to happen on the streets. Vehicles moving to and fro.
That's right.
70% of the vehicle, your police supposed to be on the street patrolling.
On the streets, patrolling the streets.
In America, you could just in an instant, police right up on here. We don't have that yet. Yeah. So people are allowed. When you see, you know what time the police coming out, you know what time they're going in. Again, as I say, it always a
That's right. So that we evade. That's right.
And they think that they're getting the
That's
job done.
right. That's right.
But all you're doing is that you're contributing to the perpetuation
That's
of,
right.
of
That's right.
lawlessness in
That's
Trinidad
right.
and Tobago.
All
That's right.
So the last time the licensing officers were here, right? They were the total amount of money that they collected in fines was well over 1 million TT dollars. All right. And they give a list of offenses as to why the main culprits as to what the people is getting charged for, right? You know, we might have faulty equipment or we might have, you understand? But sometimes, and we see many instances of it on social media, where the licensing officers are charging people for more or less. I can understand sometimes you get a smooth tire. That's dangerous, right? You don't have a horn.
Right.
That's also dangerous.
Right.
But sometimes you might have a chip on your windscreen.
Right.
It's not dangerous. It doesn't affect the operation of the vehicle in any way, but you're getting charged for that, right? You wouldn't be given an opportunity to fix that, right? Also, something as simple as a faded number plate, right? Number plate is still totally visible, but just because the white just turned a little bit yellow, you get charged. You understand? So it's stuff like that. Stuff like that will lead somebody to believe that it's not an exercise in controlling the law, but an exercise in weaponizing the law, right? In order to drain finances from the economy or probably disrupt, right? Anybody have any insight? Well, not insights, but any thoughts about how they go about charging people for stuff that really are really minor things?
The problem we face is the inconsistency in law enforcement. We are not consistent. The police is not consistent. The licensing department is not consistent. I said earlier on, I have absolutely no problem with the licensing department and the police doing their jobs. The problem is that you're not consistent.
Right.
And when you're not consistent, people get relaxed. You know, my number plate needs fixing, but next month I will do it, next week I'll do that. And then next week I'm going to keep putting it off until it gets to a point where it's bad. And then here you come now with this big hammer and you charge me for that because you're not consistent. If there is consistency in terms of the checks and balance with the licensing of officers and police officers on the road, you find people would have no choice but to deal with these matters more urgently or treat these matters more urgently. Because here you're rational now. The chances of me getting away with this over a period of time becomes less than the chance of being caught or having to pay a fine. That is what a functional society does. When you have law and there's no enforcement of it, then people get very relaxed.
That's
and
right.
when they get very
That's
relaxed,
right.
then it bubbles over. And it becomes a major problem as we have now. What we have now is a major diabolical problem.
That's right. That's right.
Our
That's right.
motor vehicle and licensing department is in a mess.
That's right.
And that's not now. That's not last week. That's not in Tobago. When you come to Tobago and act like if Tobago come to catch slaves in Tobago and they're driving through villages like, yes, what is that really?
Right.
You're not treating with, I have said, our government, we have some very traumatic government institutions, and the licensing department is one of them. Customs, T&Tech, NIS. These are some institutions. When you think about going there, you have to pump yourself.
Right.
No,
You gotta give yourself
I mean,
a
you're-
motivational speech.
You're absolutely correct.
And all
And
these type of scenario.
you're absolutely correct. And the mess that you're talking about with this licensing department and their enforcement on the road is they're dealing with vehicles that weigh thousands of pounds,
Yes.
moving down the roads at 80 kilometers per hour, that become a weapon in the hands
point.
of people that have become so
Reckless.
habituated in their recklessness,
Yeah.
right? Because you develop driving habits, and I'll give you an example. I used to hate wearing seatbelts. I felt constricted when I put a seatbelt on. When I get in my car and I put on a seatbelt, I would feel as if I'm trapped. Like, what if I need to get out my car in a hurry and this seatbelt has me trapped? I would feel constricted until they started with the click it or ticket and started giving us some massive tickets for not having your seatbelts.
Right.
And the officers would be posted up
Right.
on the streets watching just for seatbelt infractions. That's how they run their operations.
Right.
This month, we're just targeting seatbelt operations, and that's all they're looking for.
So you get
And
tickets for
when you get tagged a couple of times, you start putting that on,
So you get
putting
tagged
that
a couple
on,
of times for seatbelts?
putting that on. Yes. But the point I'm making, remember I started off by saying I hated to wear seatbelts, right? Now,
Comfortable.
when I get in my car, if I don't put on my seatbelt, I feel uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It's a habit.
Behavior.
Everything is a habit. Driving is a habit.
And what causes that behavior is the enforcement.
Behavior modification. You have to modify the behavior.
That's what happens.
You
Right,
see?
and I just want to bring up, Tobago is smaller unit, and the advantage and disadvantage of us being small. So where there are advantage, we must use it to our advantage. Because
Right.
where there are disadvantage, it comes against us. And all I'm saying, there are certain charges. For example, the moderator would have said, like, for example, a number plate or something.
Right.
Why, you see, the culture of Tobago and as it's small, why can the licensing officer tell this person, okay, I'm giving you 1 week to fix this. I'm going to take your number and you have to report to the licensing. Because we're small. We have to that.
Right.
That may not suit Trinidad because of the largeness and
Right,
you know.
right,
but
right,
that could be operated in Tobago. So I'm giving you, okay, number plate, light, a broken light. I'm giving you 1 week.
Right.
I take your number, the vehicle number, your number, and then you have to report to the licensing officer. Change it and report. That could be instituted.
Of course. Well,
because as public officers, we have to understand and carry out. Although it's law, is there a law they are doing a job, but we must carry out the law in a manner that is conducive to the culture.
Of course.
That could be the same way. It's
And-
the same way how somebody could be able to, because sometimes women just change bags and whatever.
Yeah.
So you forget your license.
Forget your license. Yes,
If you get stopped by a police or a license officer.
Police does that. Licensing.
Yeah, the license officer real dread with that.
Listen, they are trained. Listen, they are trained like soldiers.
Right.
And they're not supposed to.
Let me just.
This document, the licensing officer took the man document.
Right.
Read the document and fling it back in the car.
We don't know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah,
true.
yeah.
That
No,
is
I'm saying
exactly-
I'm telling you, I am not there. We don't know for a fact that happened, but I'm saying that is
You got
consistent
to
with
get
the attitude.
for something.
That is consistent with their
Yeah.
attitude. Licensing officers have no regard or no respect for nobody on the road.
Which
They are
is
trained-
bad.
Which is bad. They are trained to do their job in a particular way. It's like you bring soldiers to police to the
Right.
community.
Public servants
And that's
don't-
bad.
public servants are
No,
not trained to operate
I want to speak to the point Barry made, because Barry made a very, very, very useful point there, right? And from what I heard, I went to this meeting they had last week, the licensing officers and the TTPS at the library. I thought it was a public meeting, and so did several other people.
Right.
So we went to the library thinking we could just walk in.
Right.
We could not. They had 30 seats put down, and it was for stakeholders only, people they invited.
Okay.
So I made a call. I said, hey, we're here, and, we were told it was a public meeting, and we're here, we can't get in. The officer said, no problem, we'll let you in. So we went in, and we heard what they had to say. One of the things they pointed out, and they pointed it out again this morning on their interviews, is that they're now electronic
With the tickets?
with the tickets.
Yeah.
So it's no longer people walking down the street with these big fat books and having to write numbers down or anything of that nature. They can now enter a warning ticket in the system that any officer can see. So if I pull you over this week and I point out your license plate, maybe may have a problem reading that at a distance. And for safety's sake, law enforcement's sake, I need to be able to read the license plate number when I shine a light on it. And yours is I have a problem with yours.
Yeah.
Right? I'll give you a warning. And that goes into the system. It shows the date and the time that warning was given. A week later, another police officer pulls you over. He can look in the system and see, hey, your license plate is a problem here, man. And you got a warning last week telling you about it, giving you time to fix it,
So it is possible.
and you ain't fix it. Guess what?
Ticket.
You're getting a ticket this time.
Ticket.
You see,
Were they
so
that
that
the kind of suggestion in the meeting? Were they taking questions or taking comments or suggestions from the public?
they took a few, but they were there really to talk to the taxi drivers and the rental car drivers and things of that nature.
Okay.
But you know, we gave suggestions. One of the suggestions I gave them was concerning these potholes in the road, in the drive zone.
Right.
And what they need to do is tag those potholes as hazard. Tag the word hazard on it. That gives the department that is responsible for fixing these potholes, they have to get out there and fix it because someone said that's a hazard. In other words, a hazard is not just it can mash up my vehicle. It can give me a flat tire. It can literally take a life, take a limb.
Yeah.
That's a hazard. So once I put the word hazard on that particular pothole in that place, and that doesn't get fixed, and something hazardous does happen from that, somebody should be criminally liable for that.
Oh, of course.
You see, so I gave them that suggestion. That is one way, because these potholes in the drive zone, I mean, they're horrendous. People are trying to swerve away from a pothole and almost mashing up into a car coming.
Yeah.
It's bad enough that they swerve away from the patches in the road.
There's another hazard on the road too. These guys who work early morning cutting the road, they will cut the road
Leave the
and
bush on the
leave
side.
the
rubbish,
big
the
piles.
pile of rubbish.
That's a hazard.
There's a time when I had to actually drive through that.
Nothing,
in another car.
nothing should
What is
should
the- what is the-
impede
Do you know
or
why? What was the rationale behind that?
No, they leave it to the side of the road for it to be visible enough so when public health pass, they'll pick it up.
somebody will come and pick it up.
Listen,
That makes no sense.
go ahead.
That's
You sure
another-
you wanna go there? You sure you wanna go
No,
there?
That's another habit. That's another
I'm not
habit.
behind it, eh? I just saying that is the rationale.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying
I'm
you
not
wanna go
standing
with that
behind
rationale, you or you just assume that that's the rationale.
I assume that that's the
okay,
rationale.
okay, so we can hold it after that. Barry, you in the public service, you know what's the rationale behind that?
That's what.
Leaving the pile of rubbish on the side
No,
of the
well,
road.
for what he just said,
Yeah,
they're supposed to have a crew that is.
I
Comes
do
after,
agree with
comes
it.
after.
I do agree with it, but that's the
I
rationale.
cut and you rake.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
person who's supposed to rake did not come. So the person who rake and pile it up. and the
It's just a
person
matter of them coming up.
There's no.
No, it's not a question that the person is supposed to rake or pick up in coming up.
They come in a week later.
And sometimes never thought vehicles will treat with the
Yeah, yeah,
right and
we all
that
see
way
it.
you have
Yeah,
a foreman.
yeah,
That way
yeah,
you have
we
a
all see
foreman
it.
for. The foreman not only is to make sure that they cut and is to make sure that stuff.
That's
is removed
right.
after.
Yeah, but the
and he
point-
should not leave.
Yep, all right.
That he should not leave
So
until that stuff
since
is
we make a
taken out.
suggestion,
It's a habit. It's a habit.
And it's a hazard, a serious hazard. I think that matter should be dealt with on the spot. Because what you're actually doing is creating hazard. And
Yes.
you make a very valid point.
Yes.
If it is that we could have sued or hold somebody liable for any.
Yeah, but that could be done. No, you see, once the work is taking place, there's a hazard there and there should be the necessary sign. Once the work is completed, all hazard should be removed before
From
the
the
road.
right.
But
You
with
should,
hazard,
That
you create-
means taking up the stuff and everything
but with hazard,
before the road is open.
With
You
hazard-
can't remove the hazard and the signs, the tape or the case and leave the stuff there.
You
It's
cannot.
still there.
You should not have anything in the drive zone that may
Free flow.
impede a
And the roads are
driver.
already narrow, especially
you see-
those secondary roads.
All right, so
Most roads in Tobago now.
right, so we're talking habits,
Yeah,
right?
habits, yeah.
So it's a habit that they do that.
Right. And
It is-
and
it is
and
also-
this is the state,
It is also a habit.
Wait, this
It-
is the state creating that hazard then.
It is also a habit that we simply allow that to happen.
That's another good.
We drive along it, we drive through it, we drive as if it's not there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's habits all around,
And we all are responsible.
and we all are
the
responsible
consequences
for
of
it.
all
But you see, I'm a public servant for 38 years. And you
that. 38
know,
already, Barry?
38 years. I'm
Yeah,
public
man.
servant for 38 years.
Right.
And a lot of the public blame ministers in the case of in Trinidad and blame in the secretaries. But the secretaries and ministers
Them
are
men
not
picking up
supposed
the
to blame. Is it normal?
Is it regular
No,
everyday
Barry,
regular
no,
people?
Barry,
public
Barry, the
servant.
blame has to be shared. It's not a question
No,
of...
no, the
the blame has to be
secretary
shared.
or the minister is ultimate responsible because you have direct control over the
Yeah.
ministry
No,
or
but-
division.
we talking
But so
about-
you want to blame a minister
Yeah,
or a secretary for stuff leaving on the
No,
road?
no, that's what I'm saying, Barry. The blame has to be shared. You can't blame a minister or secretary for a drop low car. right?
We're not
You
talking
can't wait all up. You
Yeah,
can't
right.
blame a secretary and minister for worn tires and for not the upkeep of your vehicle. You can't blame licensing officers for that. What you can blame them for is allowing that type of lawlessness to grow and to perpetuate without
I
any
agree to that.
any,
Of
any,
course.
any control.
Yeah.
Right.
You
right.
cannot blame the secretary or the minister for their workers leaving pile of rubbish on the side of the road. I mean, sorry, the population, but you can blame the government for that. Because if this government workers, state employees, if something happened, I must be able to say, I'm going to hold the government
state
accountable. The state
Right,
accountable.
right.
So the responsibility, depending on the scenario, the problem, the blame has to be shared. We have to be able to say he was wrong or he was wrong, depending on the scenario that we face.
And civil society, we the people, have to also take
Yeah.
our
Of
responsibility.
course.
I dropped into a pothole. I can't remember which pothole I dropped into. But by the time I got my car to my maintenance guy to do regular maintenance on it, practically a brand new tire. You could see the threads in the tire, so brand new, right? But I had to go get a new tire because I had dropped into a pothole and it had caused my tire to bubble.
Yep.
So
Right.
so as I was driving now, it was like boop, throwing everything, and so I now had to go discard that practically brand new tire and buy another one. I was trying to find who to get compensated. I couldn't find who. I was making phone calls.
Good luck. You ain't getting
I was making phone calls. Who can I pull out of their pocket?
Our people.
Call
These
Mr.
are the things that
James.
traumatize our people
Call
because
Mr.
there is
James.
nobody to hold accountable for these.
No one to hold accountable.
But yet still, when you're ready, when you take up office and you feel that you want to make a change or you want to leave an impression as an effective person, as a bad man or whatever, you come down with a hammer and you come down as society like if society alone or the rest of us alone is responsible for the predicament that we're in. And it's not so. It's unfair.
I think we as civil society need to start holding our government
Of course.
accountable
Of course.
for how these roads are
Of
kept,
course.
right? And again, I'm talking potholes in the drive zone. This is a serious hazard.
Serious hazard.
It's a very serious hazard.
Like people complaining about the tires and the front ends and the shocks and
No,
stuff.
no,
You have
People,
gone
people spending big money to maintain their cars, but I'm thinking bigger than the car itself, because the car you could spend a couple of dollars and put that back together again, right? You can't put a life back together again. You can't put a limb back together again. And this is where my thinking is going. And if it is not happening now, Barry, if it's not something that's happening so frequently that we say, oh my God, every day we turn around, somebody drop in a pothole and mash up a car, right? The potential is there for it to happen. And so we must treat with that potential, because that potential means there's a potential for danger there. And you must abate that. You can't just leave that there and keep your fingers crossed. Okay, nothing happened today. Let's hope nothing happened tomorrow. Let's hope nothing happened.
We have developed that culture.
We've developed that culture.
Just today, we move on.
Yeah.
I have a question, right? We have an issue in Tobago now where we have very, very, I think, important posts, public servant posts, that are vacant, right? And they would require outside help to be filled, but yet they are continuously vacant because of whatever administrative reason that has to happen outside of Tobago, which is Trinidad. And the amount of licensing officers that we have in Tobago is one such problem. And it has been a problem for a while now, but it's not being rectified. Why do you think it is not rectified? Because if we have enough licensing officers in Tobago to patrol, all of these problems that we're talking about could gradually be fixed.
That's right.
You understand? You could have regular patrols, you could have whatever, but we're not getting the sufficient personnel from the Transport Commissioner in Trinidad. Why do you think that?
I don't know, and all of this point to what we call autonomy, a greater autonomy for the island of Tobago. Because if we have because the licensing office in the building and it's the outside of the licensing officer is under the purview of the Tobago House of Assembly. No. We can have a Tobago House of Assembly who basically governs and don't have the administrative power for presiding over such matters in Tobago. We have to wait. So wait now, let me ask you a question. So if the licensing officers decide to say, well, okay, we ain't coming to be, what happens? So Tobago cannot operate at the whims and fancy of a central government in Trinidad. It just cannot happen in the 20th century. It just cannot happen. Whereas we'll be facing the problem that we're facing now and waiting on Trinidad to come up on a weekend that we have the Commonwealth Games that we want people to come out and support.
Right.
What is that?
What is that? It have something. We almost all the time so I can say I heard that alleged theory coming from somebody who was in the police. So apparently, and this is all alleged. I know they're going to deny it, but they have some. I believe it a little bit. There is, but we know you have Commonwealth Games in Tobago and in Trinidad, right, at the same time.
Right.
And so you need the majority of police presence has to be in Trinidad right now. So you don't have the amount of personnel to split between the two islands, as they usually do when Tobago have big events, right? So what they do is they send the licensing officers, knowing our behavior,
we'll stay home.
that we're going to stay home, and the streets are going to be clear.
That's why there's no cars on the road.
For the Commonwealth officials and the athletes and whoever to operate more freely because there will be no traffic.
So it's a strategy, you think?
Yeah.
And
that is quite possible.
But just Barry.
Plausible.
In terms of the
I believe
question, in terms of the question,
It sounds plausible.
in terms of the question that you've asked recently, and Barry, the point you make there is something that we're going to a whole different type of argument about.
Then no argument about
No, I'm saying that you can't solve that problem with that argument. The problem we're talking about now cannot be solved with that.
But you want something in it.
Understand what I'm saying? I have said before, and I'll say it again, a lot of people in Tobago believe that Trinidadian or central government don't like Tobago. The problem with Trinidad and in terms of the relationship to Tobago is that Trinidad has never really cared much about Tobago.
They don't exercise due care.
Don't.
Yeah.
So it's not about don't like. Forget you don't like. There's a major difference. There's a major difference. Quarter of the population of Trinidad is people with Tobago heritage. And then somebody highest office in Trinidad, in the land of Trinidad. With ease. Undoubtedly, you can't argue that.
Okay.
It's just that Trinidad has never demonstrated any care over the years for the needs of the people of Tobago.
Well, you know, an elder said to me just recently, an elder said to me that, you know, Walter Rodney wrote a book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And this elder said to me that there may be an issue to make about Trinidad underdeveloping Tobago. It could possibly speak to that, right? So I could see Barry's point along that line. If we have licensing officers here in Tobago and posts that need to be filled, why don't our THA have the power to hire those people?
It cannot happen.
Why?
It cannot happen. It sounds okay, but it cannot happen. Just now, Barry, it cannot happen under the arrangement, the constitutional arrangement.
So that's why the autonomy is needed.
Barry, autonomy. Listen, and this is why I'm saying it cannot happen. But let me make some sense. Barry, autonomy. Let me tell you what autonomy means. Autonomy means that you have to separate.
No. Autonomy means controlling.
No. Barry, no. Separate. Autonomy means you have to separate. People are misconstruing the definition of autonomy under the THA and trying to be arrangement. It cannot exist. You cannot have autonomy in Tobago with a local government arrangement. There's no such thing. You have to separate. Let me explain to you.
So you are independent. So you believe in independence.
Understand what I'm saying. If you want to talk about autonomy, you want to talk about licensing and more control for Tobago, you either talk that under autonomy, or you talk about management under the current arrangement that we have. What we have is a discussion for management and not autonomy. You cannot, it doesn't exist. Legally, know how it exists. What happens now with the argument that Barry and others are pushing when it comes to solving major problems for Tobago is confusing the issues, and those now who on the outside looking in have a reason now to pull back and say, but everyone look like the one.
Right.
Because you cannot talk autonomy to fix a problem with licensing and policing in Tobago. You have to talk about management. Autonomy means, Barry, that you have to say, yeah, what's going on? I take my Georgie bundle, I go so and you go so. And then I can say, well, autonomy means, yeah, what's going on? We want more licensing, we want more police, we want more this one. This is what we're going to have to do in Tobago.
Well, you do have different forms of autonomy. You have different levels of autonomy. Right, so you're not talking about secession. You're not talking about secession.
I am talking about the argument that's on the table now.
Right.
I'm not talking about no nuances and other forms of autonomy. I'm talking about the autonomy, the definition that's on the political table right now.
The autonomy that Tobago is pushing for is not the autonomy you're talking about. We're not talking about secession. We're not talking about separating from Trinidad.
The argument.
We're talking about Tobago having.
That's not the autonomy they're talking about.
That's the autonomy that we're talking about. Tobago having greater.
The point that Barry just made cannot exist with a Trinidad and Tobago relationship.
Of course it can.
No, it cannot.
Of course it can.
No way.
No.
How do you employ more licensing officers in Tobago? Let's say the teacher has the responsibility for licensing. Who is going to be responsible for licensing officers in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, right now, the THA has a responsibility for licensing officers. Do they do or not?
It will take legislative change for
of course, and that's the point I'm making.
And all of those changes are necessary.
The point I'm making. And therefore, when you talk about legislative changes, moderator,
but you can change the legislation.
But I understand what I'm saying. If you say that you want Tobago to have autonomy, and that autonomy means that you want Tobago to have control over licensing officers and police and all the things that are happening in Tobago, then you actually saying we want to separate.
No, you're not. You're not. No, you're not, Ricardo. I don't see how you're making that leap.
You can't draw
that. You're making a leap.
Okay. The function part of it. How do you function with a Tobago licensing department and a Trinidad licensing department when you all have to operate under the same laws and the same regulations and the same rules? How do you have that two separate functions?
No, we're talking about
the ultimate licensing code that governs the country will govern Trinidad and Tobago.
We're talking about the man.
So the actual staffing, right? Having somebody you have to wait on an administration from Trinidad to
I understand the frustration. I get the frustration, Mr. Moderator.
They still have to be able to follow the law the same as Tobago police.
Why do you think
come from here?
Why do you think that you have never gotten far with this whole question of autonomy and as far as the bill that is before and bills to come and so? Why do you think we've never gotten far? Because on the argument that has been put forward over the years.
Because there's no political will.
It's not political will enough. Because most of the time, most of the people argue autonomy were in position of power to actually effect some changes,
Not in Trinidad. I would say it will take on the both.
You have a prime minister. You have a Tobago prime minister who understands the Tobago dynamics, and a Tobago president who understands that. I'm saying to you that I understand, and don't get me wrong. I'm not against autonomy. I don't want anybody go and say I'm against autonomy. I'm simply saying. No, Barry. No, listen to me carefully. Barry wants to be frustrated, but Barry not that frustrated fellow. I am simply saying when you talk the argument on the table about autonomy cannot exist with the Trinidad and Tobago arrangement. Cannot. And this is the reason why.
Let me ask Ricardo. Let me ask something.
Yeah, we're saying the absolute same thing. We're saying the absolute same thing.
With what's going on over the weekend with the licensing office, even self, the Minister of Works was not informed that those licensing officers were coming to. Yeah, the Minister of Works. Well, and he seen his wisdom that here. He realized that there are games here and people not leaving their home, people can't attend, they have no transport.
Yeah, because of the transport.
If the minister could have called off that exercise with one call, I'm done with that. They don't care.
Well, that's the point I made
Right.
earlier.
They don't care.
Right,
The
the same thing
secretary
you
can't
said.
do that.
Yeah.
I
The
have
secretary
said,
can't do that.
I have said, Barry,
The
that they don't. I
The
have
secretary
said,
can't do that. So
Barry,
imagine, hold on.
Uh-huh.
Imagine we having, Tobago have a government here. And our activity as we invest almost $40 million.
Strong
We have a
words.
government here.
Some strong words by government.
We have a section of government.
We have section of government. No, you're not going. No, Barry, no.
Finish it up.
Yes.
That's
We see that okay, that an exercise is going on. We don't have a problem with the exercise. But after one day, we see that it is affecting the turnout and what
Yeah.
to take. And we have a secretary here, a chief secretary, can't intervene. Can't intervene. Can't intervene. And you are saying that, and we as Tobagonians must let hold on, and we as Tobagonians must let this thing continue for decade and decade
I'm not
again.
saying no.
Time it must stop immediately.
I'm not saying
it
no.
must stop now.
Number one, it can't stop like the way you want it to stop immediately. No, that's not going to happen. Secondly, I'm not saying that it should continue with that kind of arrangement and content. I'm not
So
saying
why
that.
did Minister then call up? Why did Minister then call
politics, Barry? Politics. Understand what I'm saying? I don't understand the game, you know. Politics. Understand what I'm saying? The arrangement between Trinidad and Tobago as it stands. Politics is the only thing that actually having a free flow right now. Petty politics. And that's why the people of Tobago suffer.
That's right.
Petty politics.
That's right.
Because you have a point. The minister could have called him and say, hey, this timing ain't right, you know. Tobago, they have the thing going on.
Right.
But petty politics.
Right.
Because what's happening is that you're the Tobago government, the Trinidad government, and the Tobago government, as Barry say. We have two governments right now, and you see where the problem start. You have a Trinidad government and a Tobago government. But we have one constitution. I don't know how that functioning, how we expect that to function, but we believe in our head in Tobago that we have a Trinidad government and a Tobago
Let
government.
me ask you a question. If you go up in the hospital and you have no drugs to fill the prescription, who you calling? The Minister of Health? Who you calling? Who is responsible for
I
that?
call it secretary.
Come on now, Ricardo, man. Come on
But
now.
the bottom-
Wake up.
Who is the secretary going to call?
Call the Minister of Health.
No,
The
I'm asking
bottom
you,
line is
who
this.
the secretary of health in Tobago going to call?
The chief secretary and the minister and the division and the secretary for finance. We want money to buy jobs.
Well,
The
exactly.
bottom line is
Still come back
this.
to
So we have a government.
No,
Gentlemen,
no, it's
gentlemen,
not from nobody. And where is
gentlemen,
money from?
gentlemen.
The money coming from the government of Trinidad.
No, the money coming from the consolidated from that the taxpayers pay the money into
Well,
which
Gentlemen, gentlemen, let's get back.
Bring it
So,
back.
wait, the resources of
Bring it
Trinidad
back.
belong to the people of Tobago and Trinidad.
All
The
right.
resources of Tobago, and this is the arrangement that we have, the resources of Tobago belongs to the people of Tobago and Trinidad as well. So, Barry, understand what I'm
So
saying?
wait, hold on. So $5 billion out of $55 billion.
Barry, you're going
We
Barry,
get.
okay, all right, we ain't getting enough. We
The
can still
bottom
one more.
line
Barry,
is
we can always
this.
one more.
The
I'm just simply saying,
bottom
Barry.
line is this, right? Tobago drivers need to be safe on the road. Tobago not having sufficient licensing officers
Is a problem.
It's
to
a problem,
manage
it's a problem.
our traffic flow
Tobago have this incident
is
and
a
everything.
is a
not
problem.
resolved.
But
It's
it's
in
not
everything,
but
everything.
it's not just
Not
a
enough
problem.
lights, not enough this, not
Hold
enough
on.
that.
It's not just a problem, right? It's a problem that can lead to fatalities,
No, we understand that. We agree.
right?
With you.
And so that has to be
And the same
fixed.
thing that happened in Trinidad
And
happens in
so
Trinidad.
if we have positions,
Yeah, Barry, man.
if we have licensing positions, as the moderator says, and those positions have been there endlessly and they're not being filled by Trinidad, who is the only people, I guess, that could fill the positions,
Right.
then we have a major
Yes, we
problem.
have a problem, right? Agreed.
And we, the people of Tobago, need to speak up on that issue.
Of course. Put
We
pressure on the
need
government.
need to put
We
pressure on the government
I
because
agree with that.
because our
And I'm
safety,
agreeing with that.
our safety is at risk. Again, we're talking
Ricardo,
safety.
I am
We're not just talking politics now.
I'm
We're not
agree-
talking
We're talking safety.
But what
Our
is-
safety
what
is at
what
Let's
risk.
talk this
Hold
thing
on,
without
you see,
talking politics.
We have a misconstrued idea that politics is what we consider. Politics is, you know what is
An ingrained
politics?
process. An ingrained
Politics, no. Politics is the improving the lives and standard of living for the citizens. That is what politics is.
All right.
So let me ask
That's
you,
a
are
noble-
citizens
that's a
charge-
noble definition.
All right, let me ask something. In Trinidad, you are seeing overpass, bypass, 3-lane traffic, 2-lane traffic. And we have 1-2-lane traffic on the Claude Noel so-called highway. And we can't get that done. But we seen road extending in Diego Martin
Right.
waiting.
Right.
And you are talking about this is Trinidad and Tobago?
Understand something, Barry?
You talking about
I
this is
think
Trinidad?
I
You
think-
coming and display
Alright,
about Trinidad and Tobago?
so we
Barry,
can't-
I agree that Tobago
Yeah.
needs all of those overpass and all.
Yes.
I'm agreeing with
Yes.
that.
Alright,
I
alright.
do. One last point, someone. I'm agreeing with that, yeah. But I want you to understand that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You're talking about autonomy and the things that Tobago need. I'm saying to you, the problem we have faced over the years with the relationship with Trinidad and Tobago is that Trinidad has shown that they have never really cared about the
Because you know why?
No, just never cared about the development of Tobago in the way they cared about the development in Trinidad. I'm agreeing with you on that. And simply saying the things that we want to achieve, the autonomy that we want to achieve, cannot happen with the constitutional arrangement that exists now in Trinidad and Tobago. Cannot happen.
Everybody agree with you there.
And
what we argue about, yeah.
But hear what? I beg to
agree
differ.
with you.
But what Barry Corrin about? What Barry Corrin about?
Here my last point. Here my last point. Before, listen, until Tobago, this is my point, and I say it without fear or
This is the point,
favor.
Barry.
Listen me,
Tobago,
Tobago, listen me very carefully. Until we eradicate, don't get rid of it, eradicate the so-called PNM in Tobago, Tobago can't get you. Because I'll tell you why. No, I'm telling you, Tobago was before PNM came back into power in the Tobago. Tobago was seen it was gradually getting the way of the autonomy. Since the PNM come, and it's deliberate. Hold on, yes, it's sabotage, because PNM is just to keep Tobago divided so that Tobago can't get its way. This is what the PNM is all about.
And the point that
I agree with you.
hold up,
We have to
let me-
eradicate
hold up.
them from
Hold up.
Tobago, from the landscape of
We have no
Tobago.
time. We have no time.
All right.
We have no time. We have no time. So we have to bring it back. On that bombshell, we always had to tie it back to politics. Somehow everything comes back to politics on this.
Yeah, always come back to
this
politics.
thing. Even though it wasn't a political discussion. But anyway, all right. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out. Right? I enjoyed the discussion tonight. All right. Tobago, thank you for joining us in the studio tonight. We want to continue having discussions. Guys, be careful on the road. All right. Get your vehicle up to code so that you don't get charged by the white shirts. All right. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's just that once you follow the law, you have nothing to fear.
Amen.
All right. So, I thoroughly enjoyed my discussion with you and the gentlemen. But until next week, from Tobago Update Studios, I bid you adieu. Have a good night.